Diplomacy fails where memory survives. Dr. Elias Thorne thought this bitterly as he adjusted the collar of his dress uniform, which felt increasingly like a noose. The spire of Zenith was not built for human comfort. It was a cathedral of singing crystal and pressurized silence, designed to amplify the slightest whisper of the Athorian elite. Across the obsidian table, matriarch Valara sat like a statue carved from midnight in starlight. She was 7 feet of regal intimidation, her bioluminescent markings pulsing a slow, rhythmic warning violet. To Elias, she was an impenetrable wall of politics. To Valara, the human was a confusing biology of soft skin and chaotic heat signatures. We are wasting time, Valara thought, her secondary heart thudding against her ribs. The council demanded a trade route, but her instincts screamed that the human's presence meant something far more dangerous. He smelled of recycled ship air and something else, something warm and oddly nostalgic, like the scent of ozone after a storm. "Let's review the boundary stipulations," Elias said, his voice cracking slightly under the weight of the silence. He cleared his throat, feeling small. Valara leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. Her scales shifted, a dry rasping sound that echoed in the chamber. "The stipulations are irrelevant if—" A giggle shattered the tension. It wasn't a diplomatic sound. It was the bubbly, unrestrained noise of a child who hadn't yet learned that silence was a currency. A small door behind the throne hissed open, and a tiny figure tumbled out. Princess Ilara, no taller than Elias's hip, skidded across the polished floor in socks that looked suspiciously fuzzy. Guards stiffened, hands hovering over shock pikes, but no one moved. The breach of protocol was absolute. By rights, the session should have ended immediately. Elias, however, didn't recoil. He just blinked. Ilara froze as she saw him. Her large dark eyes went wide, reflecting the ambient light of the spire. She didn't look at her mother. She pointed a small clawed finger directly at the human. "He's real," she whispered, her voice trembling not with fear but with awe. Valara stood up, her chair scraping harshly against the floor. "Ilara, return to your quarters. Now." "But he's the one," the child insisted, ignoring the matriarch. She took a step toward Elias. "The one from the sleep stories." Father promised. The air left the room. Valara's markings flared a violent, shocked white. She looked from her daughter to the confused human, her composure fracturing. It was a physical blow, a sudden realignment of her world. She had inherited her husband's eyes, his throne, and apparently his secret best friend. Elias knelt. It was a gut instinct, a terrifyingly human thing to do in a room full of apex predators. He ignored the guards and brought himself to the child's eye level. "I'm sorry, little one," Elias said softly. "I think you have me confused with someone else." Valara made a sharp gesture. "Leave us." The guards hesitated. "Get out," she snapped, a sound like cracking ice. When the heavy doors sealed, leaving the three of them in the vast, echoing chamber, Valara slumped. The terrifying matriarch vanished, replaced by a widow holding a secret too heavy to carry alone. She looked at Elias, and her gaze searching his face for a ghost. "He didn't confuse you," Valara said, her voice shaking. "A dead soldier's final order was specific. Find the human." Elias frowned, his mind racing back through years of classified border conflicts, muddy trenches, and shared rations with a masked Athorian commando who never gave a real name. Just a call sign. "Kalen," Elias breathed, the realization hitting him like a physical weight. Valara closed her eyes, and for the first time, the alien distance between them collapsed. "He told me that if the dreams ever became too much for her, I had to find the only creature stubborn enough to anchor a storm." The resonance chamber hummed with a frequency that made Elias's teeth ache. It was a terrifying piece of Athorian engineering, a coil of silver and light designed to strip a mind bare. Valara strapped her daughter into the central cradle, her hands moving with a desperate, frantic precision that betrayed her royal composure. "This will hurt," Valara said, her voice tight. "Ithorian minds are like storms. Yours is solid, dense. You must be the ground wire, Elias. If you let go, the feedback loop could burn you both out." Elias didn't understand the physics, but he understood the fear. He sat in the anchor chair, rolling up his sleeve. When he took Alara's small hand, it was cold and trembling against his calloused palm. It was such a small thing, a human gesture in a room of alien science, but the contact sparked an immediate reaction. Alara's breathing hitched. The machine roared to life. The world dissolved. Elias wasn't in the room anymore. He was standing in a memory that wasn't his, blinded by the glare of two suns. A chaotic wind screamed, carrying fragments of Kalen's consciousness. Pain, duty, the sharp smell of ozone. It was overwhelming. But Elias simply dug his heels in. He didn't fight the storm. He just refused to move. He projected the only thing he had. The memory of a rainy night in a muddy trench, sharing a terrible ration bar with a soldier who missed his wife. "Stay with me," Elias thought, squeezing the small hand in the real world. The chaos slammed against him, but the human mind is a stubborn thing. It absorbs grief and keeps ticking. Slowly, the screaming wind died down, replaced by a profound, resonant quiet. A sense of gratitude washed over him, not from the child, but from the echo of the father fading into the background. Kalen's memory settled, no longer a haunting ghost, but a permanent, warm protecting layer over his daughter's mind. When Elias opened his eyes, the silence in the room was heavy. Valara was weeping, a sound he hadn't thought her species capable of making. Ilara was asleep, her grip on his hand ironed tight. 6 months later, the Galactic Trade Agreement was ratified. It was a historic document, mostly because of the unorthodox friendship clauses inserted into the subtext. Historically, trade deals didn't mandate cultural exchange hours or define hugs as a medical necessity for stress relief, but the Ithorian High Council found it difficult to argue with the matriarch. Elias sat on the balcony of the royal quarters, the alien sunset painting the sky in bruised purples and golds. He was technically the official cultural tutor now, a title that mostly involved teaching Alara how to tie shoelaces and explaining the concept of a weekend. "We have a logistical problem," Valara said, stepping out to join him. She dropped a data pad on the table. She looked different these days. The rigid armor was gone, replaced by softer robes. Her bioluminescence hummed a contented blue. Elias picked up the pad. It displayed a travel itinerary for Earth. "The security detail is having a breakdown," she continued, a flicker of amusement in her voice. "They do not understand why we must visit a location called Disney World to experience human happiness traditions." Elias laughed, a rough, warm sound that seemed to belong there now. "It's non-negotiable. Part of the treaty." Valara sat beside him, close enough that their arms brushed. The contact was brief, accidental, and entirely electric. When she looked at Alara, who was playing in the garden below, and then at the man who had drifted from the stars to fix what was broken. "Then we go," she decided. "It seems we have a lot to learn about your world, Elias." He smiled, looking at the two of them. His strange, accidental family, and they had all the time in the universe.